I'm back. It's time for Proper Royals Live. It's 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And tonight I got Ed Komara on the show of Komara Outdoors, Redline Shipping. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different species that he keeps, reptile education, and a little bit of personal, physical, mental, maybe even some spiritual help. We'll get into all of that tonight. Stick around. We got a great show. Cheers, guys. What's going on, everybody? I'm glad to have you tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry for last week. Life, business, Minnesota winter, all of it tried to keep me down. I got the boiler unfrozen. Those of y'all that don't know what I'm talking about, the boiler for my in-floor heat at the car wash in the new facility froze up last week, and it was truly an emergency that sometimes just something has to give. So here we are, but we're all together again. And as I said in the intro, we got Ed Komara from Komara Outdoors on the show tonight. I'll tell you about him in just a moment. We'll get to it. A couple quick announcements. As always, check out properroyals.com. I do have inventory available. I've got some new clutches that are up or going up. And I just sent out like 16 shed tests to Charlie at shedtesting.com. And when those come in, I'll have a lot of things. Some of those are to decide if I want holdbacks, but some of those are just to list correctly and the price correctly. So whether they prove or don't prove, I'll get the price accurate and be ready to offer them up for you. So check out properroyals.com for that. Also, you can always message me or follow on Instagram, all that good stuff. Next week, we have Jeannie and Jeremy Bod from Bod's Exotic Reptiles. They will come back to the show. They got to do at least one episode a year. I mean, these are some old school guests here for the show. So I can't wait to catch up with some old friends. It's been a little while since I moved from Florida. They had a really horrible, I was going to say a rough go. Rough isn't enough of a word. A horrible go with the last round of hurricanes in Florida. So want to check in on some friends, see how they're doing, and always a fun show. The following week will be First Timers Beauty and the Balls on the show as well. It is so unbearably cold here. And I know everybody's like, yeah, it's January in Minnesota. But today I got over a hurdle, a milestone that I've never crossed before. In Minnesota, every time that I've ever said it's cold, literally every time I've ever said that it's cold or it's been cold, somebody has to pipe up and be like, this is nothing. You ain't seen anything. You don't know cold yet. You just wait. You wait to see how cold it gets. And today was the first day that every person in Minnesota that I came across that I said it was cold to was like, yeah, it's pretty cold. So we get a little warm up. We'll hit, 28, 29 tomorrow, and I think 36 by Friday. So real springtime weather by Friday. One can hope. So keep me and the boiler in your thoughts over the next few days. If you've used Cold Blooded Cafe as a sponsor of Proper Royals in a variety of ways, although not this show specifically, but if you've ever used the Proper 11 code for frozen rodents from them, which I recommend that you do, I do use their rodents. The code is going to be reset, and I'm not sure if it's active just yet, but by the end of this week, it will be reactivated. So if you've used it before and it was, not valid anymore for you, it's going to be reset. You're going to get 11% off of your frozen rodent order. So come on back. If you've gone away and you've tested the waters elsewhere, you need a little incentive, get back in the cold-blooded pool there. Check it out. Last but not least, I'd be doing myself a disservice, maybe you, but certainly me a disservice if I didn't tell you about the Proper Royals Patreon. Fantastic community of enthusiasts, beginner breeders, experienced breeders. Some guys like Shane Kelly are in there, so come check that out. it starts at $7 a month. And what do you get for your $7 a month? Well, there is weekly content that I put out, and that's looking into the future. But the past is there's a year and a half of weekly content on ball python business, the reptile business and industry. And not just me claiming to be good at stuff, things that I've failed at, you can learn by not doing what I've done as well. So share all that. There's a great community chat that's very active, community members doing business with each other. $7 gets you full access to everything. 35 gets you store credit. Every penny of the $35 translates to store credit for you. And then the top tier is actually $100 a month. And you go, wow, what the heck does that get me? Well, all of that translates to store credit. And then we work a little more closely. We do monthly one-on-ones. We could talk business. We could talk P&L planning. We could talk anything that you want. We can set up goals to help you reach and all of that kind of thing. So if you're interested, come check it out. I think that you'll have a good time. And if you say to yourself, man, if only it was free, I would check it out. It's $7. Try it once. See how it goes. Sorry. I heard a story yesterday of somebody trying to talk down another person who had like a ball python that wasn't even a normal, listed for $20. Like at some point, just pay the people if you're interested. Okay. So come check it out. I promise I won't yell at you once you're in the Patreon. So good evening to the audience. I appreciate you guys being here. Oh my gosh. Yeah. -9. It's cold out there. I know. So we'll get through it though. Spring is coming, right? Ed Komara is on the show tonight. I met Ed at I think it was the last Tinley. It's weird. Once you're like in a room at one of the big national shows, like you could be anywhere in the country and it feels very similar. I'm certain it was Tinley. Tinley back in October, working with Redline, helping out a little bit there. Myself, Ed works for Redline. I was helping break down, and we got to spend a little bit of time together, but he had to hit the road. I was staying in town another night there in Chicago. But we had a good time hitting it off, and Ed was somebody I wanted to spend a little bit more time with. And I felt like he had experience, insight, and just a good dude to be around. And I was like, you know what? Let's do some work together on the show. So that's this. We don't show prep. I don't give questions ahead of time. So please welcome for the very first time to the show from Komara Outdoors, Ed Komara. Ed, how you doing tonight, man?
What's up, brother? Good to have you.
We see the nice smile, but no eye contact yet. We got to. No, I'm saying the camera, not your hat. It's like cut off right on the bridge of your nose there. There we go. Now we got it. Now with a full effect right there, man.
My bad.
You're good, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I got the kids down for bed and doing some animal chores myself. As you know, it's a full-time 24/7 job no matter what. So
yeah. One of the things we got to touch base tonight, and Kai is in the audience, Lucas Landon Royals. When he was on my show, it's still one of the great quotes of all time that from him being on the show was, don't think of what you could do when you're at your best. Think of what you could do when you're at your worst, because these animals don't care if you got a cold, if you got the flu. And I know very little of the details, but I know that you've been through it the past year-ish, maybe even less than that. So you might have some insight on that theory as well.
Yeah, it's crazy that you mentioned that, and to kick it off, because the past, it'll be 12 weeks now. I've been in recovery for I had excess skin removal surgery from my weight loss, and I had that back in October. It was right after Tinley, so it was kind of like my last hoorah, because I knew I was going to be down for the count. I have the scars to prove it. I mean,
you posted on Instagram, yeah.
They took about 9 pounds of skin off me from my abdomen all the way around to my chest area, all the way down to my armpits. It was over 10 year in the making, and much needed, to where, I want to do it for myself and for my family and everything. And so I was down for the count for, golly, a long time, man. I'm still now. Obviously, I've been pushing a little bit, probably a little bit too soon, but you can't push when you got all these scars, and I mean, you're cut up, and so it took a long time, and I still literally had to go out to the outbuilding and had to do this and had to do that. I prepped as much as I could because thankfully, a lot of my animals that I breed, they go down for brumation, so I don't have to do any kind of work for the winter
Okay, yeah, the
time.
timing was good. Yeah,
So I planned it that way too. I planned the surgery
right.
that way. I was intentional about it. I postponed all for the rest of the year all my reptile programs just because I just wanted to make sure this was my time for me, for my family, for recovery, to where I can kick off 2025 big, and go hardcore.
Man, well, congratulations getting through that. Okay. So aside from sort of I don't want to use the word gruesome, but intense and graphic nature of it, how much weight do you have to lose to have 9 pounds of excess skin that has to be surgically removed?
So I mean, I lost 100 pounds. I mean, and that seems minuscule to a lot of people. That's lost a lot of weight, but
That's like
it's
almost,
also
that's 2/3 of me, man. That's a
you know,
lot.
and it's all in how you carry it. I mean, but I wasn't like I lost. This was over 10 years ago. I lost 100 pounds. So like I spent the past probably 8 years building muscle and a frame to where when I got it done, it wasn't just an easy. It wasn't just I had a. I mean, it's crazy. Some of my videos went viral. My videos are still going viral. I have one that's at 2.4 mil, one that's at 1.4 mil, and the hate and some of the stuff, but like people don't understand your story and your journey to where it's like I put over 10 years of hard work into it, and it's like if some things aren't going to go away, then you know it just all lined up. I work for Redline, I work from home. I was able to do it, and it was had to be come down to timing and a choice, So I made the choice and to better myself. And I know come March if you're going to be in March that you're going to see a new me in a whole new light. I've always been myself, but when you're able to full on be yourself without any
Right.
kind of hindrance, man, I tell you what, me and Phil Goss, USR president, me and him are good. We buddies. We always hit the gym every Tinley. Me and him are the only ones in the dang gym. So that's a shout out to anyone out there. Hit the gym with us at Tinley in the mornings. You cannot knock that gym they have. But yeah,
I would love to commit, but of all the mornings that I cannot make any promises is going to be any morning after any night in Tinley.
That's why it's a challenge, man.
I
right?
know. It's just the fact of the matter, though, man. Not to mention, like, those are long vending days, man. And I have this weird thing. I refuse to sit down when I'm working. So that's just this mental thing from the restaurant. Yeah. So if you were sitting down, you weren't working in a restaurant. So I don't sit when I vend, and those are long, difficult days. I can only blame myself, but those
I didn't say they were long and intense workouts. I just said they were short and sweet to get you up and going.
Yeah, well, you also said 100 pounds wasn't that much weight. So let's hey, congratulations on that. Congratulations on the determination, seeing it through. I'm sure there was obviously the exciting part, the looking forward to it, seeing a dream come true. That had to be terrifying though, too. You're a dad, a husband, you're going under the knife. This is
that was my first surgery.
Huh?
And I tell you what, man, like I went down, I had to travel down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm in Ohio. So I drove 11 hours to get this done instead of staying local, to go to the best in the country, because I figure I had to have faith in, if I'm laid out on the table, my life depends on it, then it had to be someone I trust. And the guy's top notch, Forbes list. I mean, he's a younger guy, but the biggest thing was I got used to watching the videos because they're really open about it. So I'll give them shout out. Southern Surgical Arts, man, amazing. They have a huge mass following. But I got so used to watching the videos, and then I show people, and then I literally the night before, I'm like, crap, this is me. Like, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Then the butterfly.
It gets real, right? When you're staring at it, huh?
Yeah, because I'm watching these videos. I mean, they cut you, and there is you're taking flesh off, and a lot of flesh at that. So if anybody wants to see some of the graphic stuff, check out my videos and check out my profile and all my stuff. I mean, I'm pretty transparent on it because you don't see a lot of guys being transparent on that stuff. And there's a lot of mental struggle. It's not about the physical as much as the mental struggle, bro. I am who I am. I'm happy with my life. So it's not about being happy. It's about being fulfilled and thriving. And if that's something that, I worked hard for the last decade almost to do,
Yeah.
you darn right I'm going to actually do something about it.
Right, right. Yeah. I don't know it in terms of obviously the way that you're speaking of it, but that's sort of how I see myself at this moment in time. Like if I'm going to leave my perfectly good career that sure, everybody has days they like and dislike, my career was perfectly, I wouldn't say perfectly. It was fine. It was good enough. If I'm going to leave that and risk everything, I better see it through. I better crush it. I better figure it out, and I better, make it work. So that's more about me than you. But no, I'm happy to hear that, man. That's very cool. Tell us about what you mentioned off stage, and then here since we've been live, you mentioned your outbuilding of animals. What you got going on in there from an animal standpoint? Let's go there, which is what everybody probably comes here for, and then we'll get to know the man a little bit too.
Yeah, of course. So the outbuilding was a byproduct of everything. My house, around my property, my garage, my basement. I breed. My main people can know me from my educational programs, but what you need to know me more so is what the species that there's probably I'm one of probably maybe 3 or 4 legitimate breeders in the entire country. I mean, on a daily basis, I have people from overseas wanting what we have. So and I work with U.S. Arc a lot on species because they are a native species to America, so they are on a lot of legalities. Unfortunately, so a lot of people can own them on the coastal lines.
Which
But I'm
which
one of the top
species
breed.
did you mention it?
So no, so I'm actually. I mean, I pride myself on being one of the top breeders for the Diamondback Terrapins.
Oh, cool.
So
And you to do that legally, there's some pretty heavy limitations too, isn't there on it or not?
no, no, only if you want, like I mentioned, on the coastal line. So where they're native to, which are native all the way from New Jersey, all the way down to the coastal line to Key West, all the way back up to, Texas. And so there's 7 different subspecies. So the thing about it is people don't realize how good you probably, I don't want to say had it with the ball pythons, but it's almost like you're in retrospect, if you got ball pythons, right? It started with one. And how much work had to be done with that one and the possibilities with that one. Now take that one and multiply it, and there's 7 different subspecies that
Oh,
can
cool.
all interbreed. Not to say I interbreed a lot. I'm very meticulous on it. I love purebred, as well. And but the possibilities haven't even been scratched. And I've been in love with Diamondback Terrapins since, no joke, since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
5 years old, this goes back to, I'm a young buck still. I'm 34, but at 5 years old, my dad's best friend. This was back in the paper days, where Crutchfield days.
Yeah.
That
Mailing phone books to each other. Yeah.
my dad's buddy, he had all kinds of stuff. He was in the hobby big time. I'm talking about caimans, alligators in the basement, things like that. But one big thing that always captivated me was when you walk inside of his house, the biggest thing he has is like a couple 100-gallon tank, a display, and it had spotless snow white diamondback terrapin, ornate diamondback terrapins.
Wow.
When
Okay.
you say you're looking at a ghost, I mean, it was insane. So they've always captivated me, and it's crazy to think now I'm still connected with him. And now he's like, man, I never would have thought you at 5 years old and just bringing you over to see some of these reptiles that now seeing what you're doing with this species because no one else is doing it. You're so all in because it's not about the money, the selling, the this, that, the quantity. It's about the quality. And I tell you what, man, I mean, I'd rather be known for quality than numbers. And it kind of shows with all the species if you ever check out my social media and what I work with. So,
But all that stuff comes with quality. You get the quality part done, the rest of it happens. And I mean, I know that's a really overly simplistic saying,
yeah.
but seriously, it's not, I don't want to say it's easy. After you get that hard part done, the rest of it will be
I
there
mean,
kind of
I've
deal.
been working with them, working with them for about 13, almost 14 years now. So it took quantity to dial into the quality to get, so I mean, I'm also, I don't think I mentioned or would, that I'm also the Mideast Waterland tub distributor. So, I mean, all my setups are all Waterland tubs. So I have rack systems for all my grow outs. I have my
Oh,
mediums
cool.
for all my juveniles. If you go in my garage for all my adults are in the 9-foot larges, stacked, boom, 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 like a tropical paradise. So they look slick. It's convenient, and it looks good. So I try to give my animals the best, even if I have a lot of them. So I never want
Right.
to sacrifice. Once you get to a point of like, you got to be realizing that if you need to downscale, pivot and shift, because that stuff will overlap passion real quick with so much work you have to put in.
Right. Yeah. That I had a, that conversation comes up a lot where without saying it, people are saying they're in over their heads. And that's not saying I haven't been there either. Like that's not they're over their head. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, yeah, when you realize that, it could be a dangerous slide downhill really, really fast, both for the animals, for yourself, for the business, all of it. So, yeah, there's almost no better decision you can make and healthier decision for the long run than to back off, get your feet under you, and then figure out how to expand again. So, that's a really great point. That I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so forgive me. I know nothing. I was going to say next to nothing. I know absolutely nothing about Diamondback terrapins, other than I think I saw a lot of reports in Florida about poachers with them.
Yeah, and that's where I think where I worked with Daniel Parker at the U.S. Ark Florida a lot,
Yeah.
because these people they're still utilizing old pictures of turtles covered in duct tape as shipping processes, and yeah, that might be true, really black market, but that's not realistic to right now. And I had to provide them all the shipping, how to box, how it's all labeled out, how to the whole process. Did it get anywhere? Yeah, it fell on deaf ears. That's okay, but we did something about it, and at least we're on the radar to where, yeah, in March 2021, they did the law into where if you got grandfathered in, if you owned them in Florida, but you can't own anyone after that. Our biggest argument from it's almost like you got a lot of people probably know Chris Leone, my buddy Chris Leone at Garden State Tortoise. Him and his wife, do a lot of great work natively up in New Jersey, and they set nesting spots, and then they incubate, and then they release them. Why are we not allowed to do that in other parts of the country? One can only guess in Florida, right? That's a rabbit trail in of itself. But
yeah. Well, and for anybody that doesn't know Daniel, if you can find any videos he's ever done, including guests on this show before, what a wealth of knowledge, and what a just a perfect role for him as the U.S. Ark Florida. I don't even know what his title is, if it's director or whatever it might be, but he is the perfect mix of reptile knowledge, legal acumen, and fight. He talks about laws and reptiles the way I talk about rock and roll, man. He is just an absolutely perfect guy. And speaking of rock and roll, he's a ripping guitarist too. But he's a fantastic resource. Those of y'all that don't know U.S. Ark Florida, I think it's the only subchapter, the only state that has their own, because of how volatile Florida is. It's a real bellwether for the rest of the industry. It ends up being like a proving ground for restrictive laws, but also proving ground for fights. I mean, and there's great guys, talk about a bulldog, Eugene Bissett. You set that guy after anything, man. He's unbelievable. And what's her first name? Wisniewski. She was the president for quite a long time. I forget her name. She's with.
I know a lot of the guys I know. I'm really connected also with Brian Love. He's on the board. Mark, forget some of the names. I might butcher it, but yeah. I mean, when the logs were going down, I mean, it's almost like who's going to show up. I wasn't even living in Florida. I wasn't living in Florida anymore, man. I was down in Florida for about good part of almost 10 years, and I moved before the laws hit. And that wasn't on purpose. That was because, I started a family and had twins, and we moved back to Ohio. So it's crazy how that formulated, because I wouldn't be doing, and I know for a fact, probably wouldn't be talking to you right now if that was the case, because all the stuff I own, it ain't happening down there.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you, and I will not say it was the sole reason I moved. Like, obviously, it was a big life decision to move from Florida to Minnesota, but that did play. It didn't. It didn't encourage me to stay. I'll tell you that. So, and I know there's a school of thought that says, let them come take my animals. I'll go underground. I want to be upright. I want to be present in a, and I'm not saying a spotlight for my ego. I want to be a good representative for our industry. And I can't do that if I'm underground, if I'm, going against anyway, there's a
Because
better,
who is that going to benefit ultimately, though? You know,
from a ball python standpoint, I can't imagine. You brought up a good point earlier. The challenge between animal ownership and conservation, and I don't know where the tipping point is, but there's a point where animal ownership is the conservation. I mean, you look at what Ty Park's doing. A lot of those animals might be they're very near extinct, if not endangered, and Ty Park's able to continue on their breeding and their legacy, and he's one of the few guys in the world capable of doing that. And just like you were talking about your colleagues on the Diamondback Terrapins that were incubating, making sure that Mother Nature's got a good head start, but that they're making sure that Mother Nature sees it through, eliminating a lot of variables to get those terrapins back in the wild.
Yeah, and that's another thing about specifically Florida is that out of the 7, there's 3 different subspecies out of the 7 that are in Florida, and the main one, which is the most rare, is the mangrove diamondback terrapin, and those are in the Key West. So think about the Key West. Consistently with hurricanes, displacement, habitat destruction. I mean, you're talking about brutality. I've been down to Key West.
Yeah.
I lived down there after a hurricane that wasn't really that intense, underwater still. So you can imagine, these species. And I have the pleasure to be working with them and breeding them to where my main goal with these species, as much as I love finding new owners for them, what I ultimately want my goal is to where if anyone in the chat, please say it if you know any or have seen any. But if out of all the zoos and establishments and facilities, how many of you have ever seen a diamondback terrapin at one of the facilities that are literally, I can be biased all I want, the most gorgeous turtle that you're ever going to see, other than a cool sea turtle? But and I want to get my animals inside of any facility that I can. And I've donated multiple. Twin Falls, I'm be working with the Toledo Zoo. If people don't know, side tangent, I've worked at zoos and sanctuaries. I actually got and to your point with the whole conservation and keeping, that's what my Komara Outdoors is. It's my goal is to bridge the gap between conservation and keeping, and that's not by some kind of cool mission statement because, oh man, that's needed and I want to fulfill that niche. Yeah, that's cool, but it goes deeper than that with me because I have that twofold mind that I don't want to say a lot of people, I don't want to be, say a lot of people don't have, but growing up in the outdoors, there's a reason why it's outdoors. It encompasses everything, exotic, native, whatever, to where I went hunting, fishing was my thing.
Yeah.
Luckily, I found my passion. I went to school for down in Southern Ohio and I got my degree in wildlife resource management. And then after that, I moved back. Then I moved down to Florida, worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, worked at every sanctuary, McCarthy's, anyone that I can get experience and knowledge and glean from. And then I started working with the aquatic system. So I was the regional aquatic biologist for the Treasure Coast. So I was able to be really involved with the conservation aspect and see a lot of natives like alligators every day.
Yeah, right.
Forget the saltwater, bro. I would take saltwater, and I have a lot of respect for saltwater. I'd take the saltwater any day over any freshwater body down there. But I realized that after meeting my wife that I really wanted to hone in my skills, and my main passion was hands-on keeping. I love the idea of growing a relationship with these animals so much so that then I pivoted to zoological fields. Then when we moved, I worked at the Toledo Zoo. Would have made a full career out of it. It didn't work that way because my wife's from Toledo, so we moved here to Northeast Ohio. which then propelled me to the next level of like, okay, now I'm not in my career field, but if you have any kind of passion and desire for a bigger purpose, you'll see it through, which propelled me into doing my educational programs now. So now I get way more fulfillment doing one program
Right.
than, no offense, zoological fields are great. They play a role in a niche to get people there.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a lot of education? I don't know. I know I didn't see it. So, but also ultimately, who's going into the trenches? Who's
Yeah.
going into the trenches and bringing? I live in Youngstown, Ohio, bro. Like I'm in, you know, there's nothing here. I'm in the ghetto area, but these kids still need something to hold on to, right? And to grab onto. These kids never even seen real corn from cornfields, let alone a freaking snake
Mm-hmm.
that's been like not just gonna bite them in fear.
Yeah.
So I have a really strong desire niche for my town to, for that. And that's why I'm so passionate, about what I do with the educational programs, let alone working for having the blessing to work with the species I love, and then also working for working for Redline the past year and a half. Like it's just I'm I'm so incredibly blessed, man. I just, but it doesn't happen by happenstance, man. I've put in the grind and the
That's
work and
true. Yeah,
time
you
and
got to
effort.
go. You have to go seek it. You have to get out and go after it.
And you got to know, like people, I tell these kids all the time, and anyone listening, like if you think you found what you know you want to do for the rest of your life, it's always going to change. It's always going
Probably.
to
Yeah.
pivot,
Yeah.
and you just got to fine tune and dial it in. Like I work with, some of these colleges, and now it's not too cliche to tell these kids that get your education, get your degree, get experience. But at the end of the day, it's still not too cliche to now say that you can pave your own way and carve your own way to be fulfilled and however that looks. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to go to the vets. You don't have to go to this. You don't have to go to that. Use that as a rocket shift and fuel. But I promise you, man, there's so many people out there that have so much more inside them to be able to offer this world than also just, sometimes just a career. And that's me saying I still work and I still do all this stuff. You can be
Oh, of
happy
course.
and
Yeah. 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 No, I think one thing I like about on the academic topic, my wife would collect degrees if that were a way to make a living. She loves academia. She works for a college. To your point, find what you love and go pursue it. Well, she loves academia. Okay, go get a job at the college and a career, not just a job. And she has several degrees as well. Me, if I never step foot in a formal classroom ever again, I will be such a happy man. I do not work well in that atmosphere. I had two ends of it. I didn't struggle enough, so I thought that I was amazing right up until I ran into the buzzsaw of college at a true educational institution, the University of Florida, and that it took me a long time to see that through. Like, I'm not talking the 6-year plan. I'm talking like the 15-year plan. I did see it through and I got it done. But there's almost like a shift right now where there's a value for trades, the artisanal process of coming up under a master, learning and growing. I always really valued that in the restaurants because I thought it could be a really great meritocracy. If somebody loved it and you can be mentored and grow and prove yourself, it's seen just as valuably as any culinary degree could be, if it depended on who you come up under. So I always liked that part of it, and I thought that in my day and my generation, I was born in 1980, so from 1995, it was like, are you going to college? Thumbs up. You're not? Good luck, kid. And it's like there's a whole lot more to it than that. So I think it's a great point. I had a question going back to the terrapins for a minute. Actually, I have two questions. You said the coastlines, and then you talked about the Keys. Do they live in salt and brackish water? I always imagine terrapins being freshwater.
yes, yeah. So that's where they get their name terrapin and not just turtle. So they get their name terrapin just because of the brackish water environment that they live in. So that's why their name is terrapin, other than turtle. So that's why it's a cool transition when I tell people, oh, what are sea turtles, and then what's another turtle that lives only in brackish water, and people don't realize that these animals are so dang elusive.
Yeah.
I've kayaked and traveled and all this stuff, and still never seen one in the wild. Heard some splashes, but never seen one in the wild. So that's
Yeah.
why, with conservation, it's so hard, because how do you get to know this animal and species that you can't see and find? You
Yeah.
don't see. It's not like sea turtles and all this stuff that's so publicized, or that you can just go out and just bird watch kind of thing and see. That's why, they need a lot of help. They need a lot of conservation help. And if I can't play, if I'm not in a conservation role, which I try to do my best in, then the best thing I can do is get them in the hands and get it and educate people on the species and get them exposure.
Right.
That's why I want to get them facilities to where people don't know, and you can't blame them for being ignorant for not knowing.
No.
So
Well, and I admit I spent the majority of my 44 years on this planet. I think I spent 35 of them in Florida, and I'm active. I love the water. I got married in Isla Morada in the Keys. I spent a whole lot of time there. I love fishing. I love being out, freshwater, saltwater, any kind of water I can get on. I'm not familiar at all with this species, and I'm not clearly haven't encountered it or interacted. Maybe I've encountered it unknowingly, but not interacted with it in the wild. The other question I have, you talked about when you were 5 years old, seeing, and you said the genetics or the morph of it a whole lot better than I will. Have you bred and created that animal or taken that foundation farther with any breeding, or what do you breed? Do you breed? What do you tell me about like you said that they're beautiful animals, and I know that to be the case. Are you able to breed to accentuate certain characteristics the way that we would in ball pythons? Like for me, with reptiles, everything's got to come back to ball pythons. But tell us about that breeding and kind of, I know you said that you breed for quality, but what do you look for in a breeding project with the terrapins?
So the cool thing about these guys is, I mentioned 7 different subspecies, right?
Yeah.
They all have different unique qualities and characteristics. So you can choose one subspecies. Let's just say, someone in chat mentioned concentric because they're one of the most known in the Carolinas. And because they can have a bold concentric markings on their shell, be gold shell. Their skin tone is bright matte white with streaks and slashes going on. I breed also because I love blue. I breed for a crystal blue, so in a native environment they can have a bluish tint to their skin. I fine tune that to where more I don't like the dark as much as more of a crystal blue. So I love the crystal blue. I breed for pretty much the matte white gold shell, and then also the kind of crystal blue, and that's just one subspecies. Looking into one subspecies with 2 different qualities. I've worked with 6 out of the 7. So the only one I haven't worked with is kind of really you don't see a whole lot, and I'm not saying there's not a lot, nothing special to them, but they're just not really just not something that you want to like you think of to keep.
Right.
The mangroves are mostly elusive, and they're more of a bold purple gray. Just man, they accentuate these colors that the crazy thing about this species is they are not a morph. They are not a morph. They are you can have a crazy naturally reoccurring one in the wild, but it's not a morph. So these qualities that I speak of when I breed, I'm not breeding for exantic to exantic or this to that to make
so
to dial in that.
They're not isolated genetically. These are passed on traits in different ways that are not
and
genetic.
you just got to fine tune and dial into where I might have a clutch, and I promise I usually have probably at least 2 or 3 out every year that no matter how hard I try and pair, I still can't create that purposefully because it's just that it's luck of the draw. And I hate to say that, but it really is like, and that, but like, that's also coming from a dial in on genetics. You at least know that, hey, look, I know I'm going to get this trait and this trait combined or het. It's not like that with Diamondback terrapins. It's just straight quality over quality.
So these aren't slots on the double helix like it is in ball python. Like
The
cool
only
thing,
one that has het is the het albino.
I was
for
going to
our
say,
nates.
so there's some that are like,
There is a het albino,
yeah,
but like other than that, like there's I think a het concentric, but like those are so few far between that people just want purity, and that's just really what it is.
mhm.
And it's crazy how off the wall some of these can look. Like I breed my main forte. I like working with the Gulf Coast species because they were very they were given up on and seen as dark and dingy and spotty and gray and whatever, and which they did. But I seen that they had way more capabilities and potential than most of the other beautiful ones, and no one invested in them. It's taken me 10 years, and
Yeah,
now I have overseas always contacting me because I'm one of the only ones publicly
right.
producing some of the top quality. Because I mean, I'm talking about, I know my animals now to where they don't look too much when they're babies. Give them a month, give them 2 months. There's plastron, their bottom of plastron turns bright orange. Their skin goes from gray to matte white, and they go from big bold spots like a panda. Like I know now what my genes are going to do when their baby's coming out the get go, to where it's like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like in with some of my ones that I work with, but like some of the concentrics, yeah, it's kind of what you see is what you get when you breed. But
Mhm.
like even their innates, they're just all white. Even their shell's all white. But people don't realize that's not how they stay. Give it a couple months, their shells turns black. They still keep the beautiful skin, but
Yeah.
these animals, then you're talking about a shed. They shed and they shed their scutes on their shell. They're constantly changing and getting better and better and more defined
That's cool.
naturally.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing to watch, especially when you have them from babies and you've had them for 10 plus years in the same animal, knowing I bought my first one was on Craigslist for $40, and it looked like a baby turd. And now she's one of my top, like you would be like, man, that came from that to this, and she's a
Right.
massive girl.
Oh, cool. What is
And that's another thing about these guys is they're really capable of keeping. Like it doesn't take a whole lot other than
mhm.
the aquatic. If you're dealing work willing to work with the aquatic, the females usually get 9-10 inches. Males usually stay around 5.
Yeah.
So they're not really big honking turtles that you can keep easily a pair in a 150 or something like that if you're
I was
only
going to
looking.
ask what size tank do you need for, and should they be in pairs or can they be isolated or what works?
It really depends. I mean, I think someone chimed in on the chat that they're such a personal turtle, and that's what I love them the most. Other than their beauty, they are such a personality driven turtle to where as long if you it's almost like if you invest in these animals, some animals will just be like, oh, they just kind of do their own thing no matter
Right.
what.
Yeah.
But these turtles, like you can go up to anyone. I can go to any one of my tanks, from my subadults to my grow outs to my adults out there, and I could put any one of them in the tank together, right? Even though they're separated by gene and quality, I can put any one of them together and they will get along. No biting, no nipping, and they
Oh,
all want to
cool.
come up and they want head scratches. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
I invest so much into my animals that the first thing when they want to do is they come up and you pet them on the top of the head, man.
Yeah.
They just want the attention, and then just couple that with beauty and things like that, to where it's like, man, dude, like it's hard not to get captivated by these guys, and you can't tell me that you can get. That's where conservation and keeping it
Right.
veers, but like it still is together, to where it's like there's still a correlation between the two, but you can't get to know that animal from that aspect from a book or from radio
Oh, of
telemetry and
course.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Right. Right.
So
I like that. And I'm not just sort of playing to the audience. Something that I never quite understood, and this conservation and keeping concept is great for it. It's like, uh, and I don't care to get into politics, but politically, it's like conservationists and hunters traditionally are at odds. And I'm like, this makes no sense. Outdoorsmen absolutely should be the greatest ambassadors of conservation. And I get the politics screws up everything. So we don't even have to dive
well,
into
and
it.
also the bad apples, to where it's like, are we playing that positive professional role, to where the first thing I do when I go into these educational programs, I say, hey, look, I make this loud and clear. The first thing that comes out of my mouth, I say, look, I just want to let you know, just so you don't think I'm some run of the mill guy coming in with a bunch of reptiles. And I just say, hey, look, I got my degree, da 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 da, and just lay it out.
Yep.
Even if the kids don't grasp it, the adults do, and then
Right,
they're like,
they appreciate it,
oh,
yeah.
okay, now I'm all, you know, so
Right.
I got them, you know, so,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it does bring a credibility to it with the background for sure. I would say that as well. So anyhow, embrace it, people. Like, to find the common, like, don't buy into all the heat out there, so to speak. So let me see, Ed. I want to ask you about both the educational programs and if you or anybody has ever seen my show, you know I'm interested in the business of it, and I'd like to learn a little bit about that. I don't need to get into your personal finances or anything, but I'd like to pick that apart. But it seems like we have a natural stop here. So speaking of finances and business, let me take a moment and pay some bills. Let me give some thanks to the sponsors here, and then we'll jump into that. Does that work for you?
It's all you, brother.
All right, cool. Well, of all people we could be talking about, Ed probably knows a little. Oh, we have to talk. Yeah, we got to talk about shipping and Redline too, man. We got two good segments coming up.
Come on, let's go.
Ed is, if look, Redline has the experts, the reptile people that know and care about you and shipping your animals. There's lots of options out there, but Ed can testify to it. I call Redline all the time for help on logistics, packaging. And for the record, if you guys think I have some magical line to Redline because I advertise for them, I don't. I call Redline and I just say, hey, this is what I need. I'm never like, oh, I'm Adam, whoop-de-doo. Anyhow,
Now we just hope you listen.
That's yeah, I know. You hope that I take. Hey, the last conversation we had, if you noticed, I haven't used that label yet. They are still.
I've been watching.
Yeah, they're still waiting patiently, man. We're gonna get through this weather time, and that actually is not a joke. We talked through it, and first it was cold on one end, but combined with it being hot on the other end, I didn't think that sometimes cold to cold is even better because you can heat on both ends versus danger on the hot end. And anyway, that's why I like Redline, and that's why I choose Redline. That's why I used Redline before I was ever in business with Redline. Go check them out. Use the promo code PROPER5. Get yourself $5 off your next shipping label, and you can work with great people like Ed and the team at Redline as well. Shedtesting.com. I mentioned earlier, I just sent a bunch of sheds out for all your shed testing needs. I take for granted that we have this little circle here of everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can test your ball python shed for particular genes if you're uncertain about it, or heads that you might not be able to see. We have that technology in this day and age. And just like 3 years ago, it sounded like rocket science. And here they are. Charlie at Shed Testing is fantastic. He does the testing. He's the customer service. You can message him on Instagram. He'll guide you through the process. He'll talk you through what options are available. I think there's 32 genes listed on his website right now, but I know he has a whole lot more tests as well. So if there's something you're interested in, just reach out to him, start the conversation. He will take care of you. Use the promo code PROPER15 for 15% off of 2 orders. That's not 2 tests. You can order as many individual tests as you want per order. So you're going to get a 15% discount for, if you stack your orders, quite a long time. It'll go very far. Argent Reptiles, that is Robbie Richard in Greer, South Carolina. I know right here, right now on Morph Market, he's got Clown, DG, Zebra Project ingredients with in combos that are available now. He's got a male visual DG Clown that's currently on Morph Market as well. If you join his email list, you get first dibs on all new animals that come out, and he gives you just updates and stuff. He doesn't sell your information, but you get perks just for joining an email list. So if any of that seems up your alley, go check him out. He's also got a great YouTube channel as well. Portuguese pythons, that's Danny and Renee Rocha, fresh off of the Pomona show in Southern California. They are in San Bernardino area, Inland Empire, so a little bit safer. Actually, I think technically Chino is exactly where they're at. Safe from the fires. I did check in with them. Blessings to everybody affected by the fires. Man, what a mess and a disaster. Understatement, but I'm almost like emotionally exhausted from it. Like it's almost easier not to stare it down, but we got to take care of those folks. So we got to figure out what we need to do as an industry. Danny and Renee are fine. They're working dark genes with recessive single, double, and triple combinations. All of my Ultra Pied project stuff is from them. Their Ultramel stuff is, how you do the chef's kiss thing. You know what I'm talking about? other genes like blackhead, het red axanthic, GHI as well. If you think that'll look good in some ultra males, go check out their pages and their content. You won't be disappointed. Great people to boot, man. Like wonderful people to talk to on the phone. I enjoy working with them. Ball Labs is Trevor in Aurora, Colorado. He likes to focus on high-end genes, but also like forgotten classics, like things that 10 years ago maybe people gave up on, that he was like, let's see what happens now that we mix it into some of this fun stuff. So, but the stuff you'd recognize, Puzzle, Ultramel, Clown, VPI, Axanthic, Tri-Stripe, Monsoon, Zebra, and Sunset. He's also a licensed rodent breeder in Colorado. We talked earlier about doing the things the right way, being above water and trying to work within the system and improve the system from within. Very few people are licensed in Colorado to actually have rodents. Technically, you're supposed to be inspected and certified and verified and licensed to be able to breed and sell rodents. He has that. I don't think that happens in a vacuum. Like if you do that for your rodents, I bet he treats his pythons that way. So Trevor's a great dude. I always look forward to the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo in Castle Rock because I get to go work with Trevor as well as the Redline crew. Last but not least is B and S Reptilia. That is Chris, the original sponsor of Proper Royals, entering our third year together, working together. Talk about great relationships. That he is my vending partner at Tinley. We actually own a couple animals together these days as well. So, but Chris is Reptilia because he's so much more than ball pythons, but he has ball pythons, blood pythons, locality, boas, colubrids of all kinds of shapes and sizes, including Pituophis. If you know what Pituophis is, he is your man. Those are the bull and the pine snakes. And he will also help you with the legalities of acquiring those bull and pine snakes, depending on what state that you're in. If you see us at Tinley, he does have the licenses there, and he'll make sure that you have the proper documentation to walk out the door with those snakes. You can reach out to him on Instagram. He's also the regional distributor in Pennsylvania of the Chipper Cocoa. And I believe they're still looking for other regional and local distributors. If you're interested in checking out the Chipper Cocoa, but also the business of the Chipper Cocoa, feel free to reach out to Chris on that as well. Huge thank you to the sponsors. You guys literally, legitimately keep the lights on. I couldn't do it without those guys. So give them a click. All of their information is down below in the description. And I have to say, as of live, I don't know that I put that in there yet, but it will be if you're watching on the replay. And you can find all of these guys on Instagram as well. So check them out. Ed, thank you for your patience, man. I know that we got to keep the lights on and keep things going.
I hear you, bro.
So before we get into which I know that you're excited and passionate about on the education piece and the business end of it, let's talk about Redline Shipping for a minute. How did you end up working? Now, I work with Redline. You are part of the company. You are, I think, daily, but certainly active often and a resource there. So how did that come about, and why Redline for a job or a career or a role? And then why Redline for consumers? How about that?
Yeah, so it kind of was wasn't looking for it. And this kind of goes back to I've been with them for almost about a year and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
Actually after just before their first year started, and and I actually shipped with them. I was shipping this is me from with the Diamondback Terrapins shipping. It's crazy because like when I was shipping, I just, print a label and whatever, send them off. And
Right.
and this is not knocking who I was shipping with, but I never had interaction one time with the company.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever need to? Probably not. But when Redline Shipping came around, it just was happenstance. I was like, oh, something different. I didn't really care about the buck, because I'm doing this for the hobby, and I'm not doing full time with the breeding. So, but I was like, oh man, that's actually pretty a good amount cheaper. And I was like, so I switched over, and I was actually shipping with them almost for their whole entire first year, since they came out.
Right.
And I tell you what, my first interaction, legitimate interaction with Redline was, I think I had one package, and then they called me, or they, emailed me, and then I got to know the person, just vicariously a couple times. Just like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, they're actually contacting me. And then I never forget when I was shipping my, I got a 10-foot female green anaconda that I needed.
How's that conversation go over when you call somebody and explain that? Yeah.
So, this reptile educator down in one of the Carolinas had this animal and was moving, and where they're moving couldn't get it and move it, have it. And I just was like, there's got to be a way. I don't know, and then I contacted Redline, and I was like, I don't know if this is possible. And the first one that reached out was Robin. And Robin made mention that he was like, yeah, we just shipped this, which was even bigger not long ago. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're telling me this is possible? And he was like, I'll tell you exactly what you need, and we'll order exactly what you need from not even just the ship kit. You're talking about 10-foot green anaconda.
Yeah, there's not exactly a kit for that, right?
Yeah. He was like, well, it can fit in the ship kit 5, but we're gonna have to modify the insulation. We can get custom insulation, make it 3 times as thick because green anacondas are more girthy and heavy, dense. So literally, I sent him personally the payment and he literally had it custom made, delivered right to the person, the guy with the animal. And all I had to do was like, here you go. And he just had to box the thing up, and it showed up. And when it went into the system, because I don't think it was known, when it got in the system, I think I got a notification from AJ, and she was like, what you shipping out? I'm like, yeah. And then Robin obviously explained. So it was just, but that was my first really in-depth interaction with really Robin and all them. And it was crazy that like I could even kind of go back to think like shipping a 10-foot green anaconda, no problem.
Right.
Like, didn't even blink. And slowly, I started kind of, not to say had a lot of interaction with them, but I think when I went to Tinley, because the Tinley one, I was never big into going to reptile shows circuit wise. I did my local one. I go to my local one. I promote my local
vending,
one.
You mean?
Yeah, as vending. Yeah. But even going to a lot of the shows, like people were big on the circuit, and you gotta, that's where you meet people and this and that. Like, I'm a turtle guy, man. If you know turtle guys, we don't go out much. And especially since having a family, how do I correlate that? And but Tinley was always my big one, because I got my Waterland tubs, my bulk orders from there. I pick a trailer up, it's about 6-7 hours, so not too bad. And yeah, and then going to Tinley, just getting to know some of the people like more personally, and especially Robin. And what my turning point was actually, that I never anticipated joining the team, was that going back to when I moved here, I was doing my educational programs, and I started that, but I was also working second and third shift at FedEx. And I was, because of me and my wife's work schedule, she was working, teaching. I had to carry the load of, working separate shifts, and it was just putting a daunting task on my family.
This is a nightmare.
And, 2 sailing ships, and I'm like, man, and I know a lot of people in the community, like, Greg Woodstock at Aquascape, and I'm very well relational. We know all the people like in the industry for turtles aspect. I just knew that, man, like, something in my heart was like, you know what, I want to, whenever I do, like, I just want to work in the industry somehow, some way. I don't care what it is, but it has to be able to make an impact. And I knew that for some reason it was just a decision in my heart that it sounded great, but like, would it be even feasible and possible? It didn't seem like it. And I reached out to Robin.
I would say you got to try, right? Yeah.
And I reached out to Robin. I said, hey, look, just bugging you, if you have anything open, and don't think that, you just, yeah, of course. And then you get in, it's like a normal job. No, like, Robin he is so meticulous and just and from a good way, but also innovative, and all he thinks so far 20 steps ahead. It's insane. He's such a pioneer and landmark in my life, because you're talking about a kid that my first turtle, and it didn't dawn on me until after I started working at Redline. My first turtle I ever got that I got from my buddy's dad, that he gave me a 20-gallon tank, right?
Yeah.
And I put two and two together finally, knowing we're getting to know Robin, is that there's a sticker on the top right corner of that tank with a fist.
Oh yeah? What was
And
the brand?
It was a Pro Exotics, man.
Yeah, it was the Pro Exotics. Holy cow, how cool.
And it was just like full circle. I'm like, what? I was like,
Before,
it might have made him seem a little old, but I was like, bro, like you like,
for people that don't know, before Robin was ever shipping, he was a very influential breeder and the whole Pro Exotics world. And I know that I can remember he picked me up at the airport one time and we were driving back into Denver, and he was like, I can't do anything if people don't know about Pro Exotics or everything we accomplished then. But on the other hand, it doesn't matter, because that's a different time in my life, and this is what's important right now and what I want to do. But yeah, there are layers to that, and without turning this into like worshiping Robin, what I would say to people is, like, when you find somebody that's that ingrained in whatever industry you're in, or has that kind of mind, like you say, thinking years ahead or many moves ahead, man, I love being around people like that. I want to be around musicians that way. I want to be around food people that way, business minds that way. And Robin is that's as much of a reason why I like to go. Like, you've seen, I don't think I was on a docket anywhere. And matter of fact, you were probably like, who's this dude that just showed up to work? Like, after vending Tinley all weekend, what I was saying, how long it is.
Yeah.
What were we moving, pallet jacks or something of packages and getting everything packed up, man. And it's just like you said, like, you want to be in the industry and you want to be around the people that can make a difference. That's as much of why I just want to go do that stuff. You know, that's not in our deal anywhere. There's nothing that says I have to do that or Robin expects it. I just like it. I like to be around. By the way, how amazing is the rest of the team too? Like Judy and AJ, phenomenal people.
When I tell you the accountability that our team has for one another, for everything, like, you know, it's when you talk to someone, we pride ourselves on the answer you get is you're going to get it from all of us. We are in sync consistently with each other, to where it's like, we almost know what each other's thinking before we even put it out there and brainstorm.
Yeah. Fantastic, man.
And that's how you kind of got to be to really not even fine tune and dial in, but excel. So, and that's not negating anyone else, but like, I mean, I just know, man, like I know that what we do makes such a huge difference. And just seeing how far we've come in the past year is just mind-boggling, and that's not even including what's to come. So I can't put anything out there, but when you see growth and things that are just not just ideas, and they come to fruition quicker than you could ever have thought a company do, that tells me that there is not just vision, but there's execution. And that's what makes a difference.
That is everybody's got ideas. Who's going to do it? Who's going to pull it off and do it with the team? Because you can't do it alone. And I get some questions sometimes like, Adam, you're like loyal to Redline to a fault because of this, you know, advertising arrangement. And I'm like, I've had the chance to look behind the curtain just a little bit, and it's what you're talking about that makes it exciting for me. So look, I know I'm biased, guys. Yes, there's a business relationship there, but all of those are the reasons why it's a great company. It's a great study. I say, I learn a ton from.
And my biggest thing is that, you know, like, I love, you know, it was been hard for me to kind of pivot and shift from a physical labor intensive career jobs to more dialed in and communication stuff, which I've always been a communicative relationship aspect, you know, you can probably tell, but that's in personal stuff. But I love and thrive on when I get the chance to talk to people that when me and you have talked a couple of times, you realize like I'm not coming from an aspect of like trying to buy you in or like tell you what to do. It's more of like I'm a breeder and a shipper, and I know what I've put in my animals as well, to where I'm going to give you, and we as a whole, as a team, are going to give you the honest truth, whether you probably want to hear it or not. We want what's best for the animal, you, your customer, everyone else, and I love being able to kind of let that kind of just radiate for me personally when I talk to people. And I would hope that most people, I talk to, they're like, wow, like I never, and then, I don't have to tell them that like, hey, then I'm this, but
Right.
it
Yeah.
just, it permeates, so I love it, man. I love making that impact and difference, because, now, this is giving me the opportunity and privilege to travel the circuit and get to know people and connection, and now that I've amassed a pretty good following from an element of getting outside the box of, hey, look, I'll just do my own thing as a turtle guy. And now the world is opened up to, if we're going to do anything together as a whole, we have to come together, build relationships with any kind of other breeders, whoever's doing this, who's ever doing that. And just a shout out real quick, because I have to, because man, you want to talk about my first introduction into the industry, and that's Ryan McVeigh.
Okay.
He talked to me when he worked at Zoom and stuff down, and when I worked in Florida and Daytona, and he opened my eyes, to where like, we have to do this as an industry together, not just like in a nutshell, so that's there's been many influential people, that's helped me, propel, and I
Yep.
can only hope that we pay each other dividends by, like given all the people that are sponsoring you, it didn't just happen. You
Right.
grew relationships with them, and now we can all help each other and grow each other, because we want to see each other succeed. And that's not too cliche, but who's doing that?
It's far better, in my opinion, of an outlook. We could do a whole show on growing the. Seriously, like it's. I just had the conversation today with somebody. Like, if we don't grow and make sure the doors are open and present ourselves responsibly and act responsibly and follow through with that, we're going to die a slow, painful death eating each other alive. And it's going to be the same few hundred people that see each episode versus welcoming people. And I saw it in the world. Like, this always gets people's attention when I say this. I saw it in the world of wine, and everybody immediately is like, yeah, that's a bunch of snobs. And I'm like, yeah, how terrible to be labeled a whole bunch of snobs with, and I'm not saying we should all be alcoholics, but I'm saying for me, there's happiness and great memories that come from eating a great meal with great friends in a wonderful atmosphere with amazing service, and wine is part of that. And that's what was special to me about it. And I do happen to enjoy it beyond that. One of my personal missions was to always make sure that nothing was ever presented with snobbery. And no matter how basic, I take a lot of pride. I've sold a whole lot of Enchi ball pythons, man. That's where I cut my teeth, was learning how to sell. If I could sell an Enchi ball python, I could sell the super expensive ones, And so I still, it drives a lot of what I do, or I think a lot about it, of like, I'm sure you too, like, I'm sure you get some questions that a lot of people would say are basic, and you probably answer the same question 40 times a week, whatever it might be, on shipping or packaging or whatever. But what's the alternative? Be a snob to them and them go, well, A, I'm not going to be your customer. And B, maybe that's the straw that puts them out and go, well, screw these reptile people, and I don't ever want that to be the case.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the biggest thing is like, I love the small questions, because it ultimately, I've seen it never fails. The small ones lead to the bigger ones. And if you can learn to be humble and ask the small ones, the way I see it is that we want to build your confidence up. If you don't know how to pack, let's go. If you don't know how to use a heat pack, let's go. If you don't know how to look temperatures, and it can be every different shipment at a time, not all at once. Let's build your confidence up to where even if you're shipping, one of our top customers shipping, they still ask questions and ask us, to where it's like, don't be too like, hesitant to ask that. And you know, and I think that builds people's confidence in shipping to where it's like, you know, I always question, you know, if I'm shipping something like that, but luckily I have a twofold mind now with them. But like, man, I love the small questions because they're like, oh, I never thought, like you just said, I never would have thought about that. And then aha, but there's your aha. You know,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you
Yep.
don't ever ask a question about different temperatures again like that.
Right.
But at least you're aware and you're not ignorant now to the fact, you
There's
know,
an
and that's going to
option
help.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
something to think about. And I think
Breathe.
for people breeding or trying to sell, same sort of mindset. Literally the person the breeder I've ever spent the most money with, the first time I met him, like I was a little bit apologetic, like I was intimidated. I was like, look, man, I'm not going to be your gold mine of a customer. Here's what I got today, kind of thing. And I remember him saying to me, he goes, I got to sell you the first one before I could sell you the 100th. Let's look. And sure enough, first off, he made me feel special in that he valued that money. But sure enough, I bet I have bought I bet I've sourced not 100, but I've sourced a whole lot of my collection from the relationship with that very specific breeder. And so those things are true and they matter and they do make a difference. So,
and that's my biggest thing going back to the educational programs is that I don't want to just do a program and call it a day and leave. Like I want to be a resource for people, you know, to where it's like I'm not an email, phone call, text, or whatever away from like answering questions from if you're a 5-year-old kid and you know, and your parents want to get you some and they reach out. Like I want to be that person, and I never want to stray away from the person that is feeling like they're too out of reach to contact for
right.
help.
You
know what I'm saying? I never want to deviate from that mindset. I'd rather be known in my community, in my town, than been known by the entire world of people I don't know.
How great, how like strong, powerful is the local? I say, oh man, this has really like struck me lately. I don't think we comprehend even like how many people are in a small town. I don't think we really comprehend how many people 20,000 people are. Like, even if you can reach half of 1% of these massive numbers of people, it's more customers than you'll probably ever have in your life. And like, they're right outside the door. And we think about like views and clicks. And am I known if did you go to Pomona, but did you work the Pomona show by chance or not?
No,
you didn't do
not.
that one. Yeah. You know, do they recognize me when I go to Pomona? How about when you walk down your street? Like, it's logistically the best. It's the most customer service, best scenario that you could provide. Anyway, I get excited. Sorry.
And honestly, you know, to piggyback on that real quick, that's one of the main driving factors onto why I do my programs.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is not from a customer base, because word of mouth is powerful, but because I work with USARC, I mean, I talk to Phil, you know, pretty regularly. And the way I see it is that when you don't think laws can or will happen, so my thing is that who am I, right? If a law comes into my town or my state, right, that's totally off the wall, okay? And you've seen it all the time with all these USR promotions of the meetings. They're saying there's 1 or 2 people in that room for us, right? Think about that. So if I go down to Columbus, Ohio, in my capital, let's go to an extent of a pretty far-fetched law that's going to be happening, and that's going to happen. And little old me goes to that capital. I can have the greatest following in the world, all over the world.
Right.
That's not gonna help me.
Doesn't make a difference, right?
That's not gonna help me. But what will is that me going down to that capital being like, you're not fighting me. You're fighting this school system, that library system, that educational establishment, that zoo. I have my entire community, town, and surrounding areas. I want to have them locked down to where if I'm their guy, you're not fighting me, you're fighting everybody else.
Yeah,
because they might not be as passionate, but they know that that dude came to my birthday party or my school and he changed something in me. He gave me a landmark to be able to wear, even if I don't get a snake down the road or do this or do that. I can't be taken away from the experience that has been given to me.
Yep.
You know, and that's the way I see it when I do my programs, where I'm fighting for something so much more long term and it's one of those metaphors of like, you always got to be ready. You always got to be ready.
That's right. That's
so
right.
how are you going to always be ready by not doing anything consistently?
Yeah.
You know, so that's my vision, and you know why I do these programs. Yeah, I make a good side, you know, thing to be able to do that stuff, and it gives my following. It does this. That's all byproducts, man. Like, and that's why I'm able to stay so level-headed in a way of like, I don't let things get to me of like, oh, I'm this or I'm that. Like, I'm this. No, like I'm just me, man.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, so that's.
But
just,
that kind of brings it full circle of what we were talking about, where like, if you do stuff for the right reasons, and I'm not even saying finances are the wrong reason. If you do it for the passionate reasons, the other stuff will fall in line. The finances, the clicks, the following, the brand engagement, the viral videos, all of that kind of stuff, that all falls in line. Tell us some, to get real specific, tell us some of the details. Like what are some of the animals or some of the species that you bring to you got, it was right on the thumbnail. You got this great, I mean, fantastic eye catcher of a picture of, you know, holding the snapping turtle up with the mouth open and the little wiggly tongue in there, you know, open. So what all animals do you bring?
Yeah, and that's what I've been known for now, is giant alligator snapping turtles, because I have 3 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the one in the picture is my second biggest. That's Hobbs. Hobbs is about, last time we scaled him last summer, it was about 120. And then T-Bone, who's my largest, who does my big boat show, marine shows, expos sometimes. And he, last year we scaled him, was about $130 something. So
Jeez, no wonder you got to hit the gym every morning, because you got to handle these things.
He has an 8.5-inch head. His tail drops down to my ankles when I pick him up. I mean, but when I put him out, like I can pet him, and I don't. That's not to say I advocate for, because some people that have these guys, they think they want the clickbait of like, oh, you know, do the biting thing, and bro, I think it's way more impressive that these animals won't. And right. I'm a big advocate for a relationship.
Good call, yeah.
You're talking about this animal is 100+ years old.
Yeah.
If I got his relationship and his respect, I'm not going to break it. So
that's
they have
a pretty cool.
Ponds.
That's a pretty cool thought. So yeah, if it's 136 pounds, like it's you legitimately would age it over 100 years.
Yeah. So you usually go for these guys. I mean, it's not a guarantee, and it's really hard to even like, you know, this is just scientifically of like just playing by ear of like, you know, shell growth, but it's really about almost like a pound a year almost. So like if you're talking about 100-pound animal, it's going to be probably about 100 years old. But I've been blessed enough to have those 2, and then Rex is about 80 pounds, a little bit smaller, but he's been doing programs for about 25 years. So he's what I travel with. So when I do my traveling programs, he's used to being handled, picked up. I'll pick him up. He drops his mouth on cue. I mean, not even to be poked to prod. I mean, so I love those guys. They're prehistoric, the last living dinosaur.
Right.
So that's my favorite, other than the terrapins. And then I've had to really, doing my programs, I've had to really humble myself in a way of like, and then also I'm not one to just get stuff and then just hope on research. Like with the alligator snapping turtles, I didn't just, you can't just get what I have either, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
Even most zoological fields don't have what I have at my garage, you know, or on my property. I take that really highly in regard, because if it wasn't for a relationship, I wouldn't have them.
Mm-hmm.
I got T-Bone from a previous educator. Then I got Hobbs from, I mentioned Great Woodstock with Aquascape. They assembled, I have a picture back up there. Last summer, we went to South Arkansas Turtle Farm, and they were dealing with, they've been having these giant turtles for 3 generations of families, and they needed help. So they assembled a team of probably like 25 people all over the country to fly and drive in. And I was one of them.
Oh, really?
And, yeah. And we had to dig ponds, build fencing, drain a 5-acre pond, another pond, go out there, and we pulled probably 20+ turtles that were over 100 pounds. Wow. And probably over 100 other ones. And we distributed them from sex ratio and different, and just, they were having fatalities because these big guys, they're better for education than conservation, because they become infertile, they become territorial, aggressive. So that doesn't stop them from still biting each other, and then they're trying to mate with the female.
They're killing each other.
So there's death and mortality. And but I was lucky and blessed enough to get one of those. traveled back up from Arkansas. So that's Hobbs in the picture. So, but yeah, so those are my three main premier ones that I've known for. But then that goes based upon the mentorship to where if it wasn't for my mentor, Rusty Reed, love that dude. He's like, I say like I don't want to put him age wise, but he's like a grandpa to me, man. Like
Yeah, right.
he's been working with this species for over 40 years. He's traveled the entire country with was Crunch, 165 pounder that he traveled the boat show circuit and did programs with. So he's been my biggest inspiration for that species. And I say that in regard to he's been willing to invest in me because he's seen how hungry I was for a good purpose for that species. So if I can encourage everyone, any species I get, I always try to not just grab onto someone, but like find someone that I can learn and glean from that's willing to invest in me.
Right.
Because
right.
then the animal's going to benefit so much more than me just saying, oh, this is this animal, and then it gets this big, and then they walk away and it's like, oh, that's a big yellow snake. Other than no, that's
Right.
Mac, like the albino Burmese python. They get a
Yeah.
name and placement. So I'm big on just find someone that's willing to invest, and that's what I want to be for people, is that resource. So I have a male, female, green anaconda, and then I have a black dragon, a bunch of berms, albino berms, a normal berm, some Ackies, carpets. That's not to mention my tortoises, leopards, redfoots, the diamondbacks I incorporate. So I kind of try to work with a wide range of species that are. I don't need a zoo,
right,
to impact, right? So people think, oh, you got to have some crazy amount of animals. I'm like, I can bring 6 or 7 animals and blow your mind right now and not need to have a zoo, because that's time and investment to where if it takes away from the important things in my life, family and all that stuff, and investment in the animals, like when I bring these animals, I have to depend and rely on what I've invested in them to
and
come back out.
It's got to be feasible too. Like, I mean, to really sort of put, like we were talking before the show came on.
It's like another dog. Like I say, it's like another dog or something. That's the same amount of time and investment I put into these animals. And people think it's like weird, but like, dude, like
but
these animals.
To make an impression, you don't, or to get a point across, like you can, how long do the shows usually last? I'm guessing
Mine are usually about 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh yeah. You like, there's only so much people can consume in that time, which is frankly why I keep mine at 90 minutes. 3 topics, 90 minutes. There's the show, guys. That all the secrets are out, So now, obviously, having variety is fun, and you have what you just listed was far more animals than you would fit into a 45-minute session. Is it? I'm guessing it's primarily kids or youth focused, or not?
Yeah, usually. I've done. I love the elderly places because
cool, yeah,
which is pretty awesome because you got these 90 plus 3 times my age, to where I tell you what, it's something to impact a 5-year-old that doesn't even conceptually realize what just happened. It's another thing to where I have old ladies wanting to the moment they hear snake, run, cane out the room, but yet they stay, and at the end of it they're like putting their stickers on their cane and stuff, because like I can't even conceptualize being put this way, in a way of a manner of they come away with a relationship aspect of these animals, not just like it's another. I'm not a circus act, man. Like I want my animals to be. I don't want to be the premier person in the show. I want the animals to be, and I give the animals a personality. What I'm big on. Tell you what, and I'll tell people, right now, my secret sauce, man. My secret sauce to my programs is testimonials and story.
Yeah, sure, right.
Because a lot of them have rescues, and I want to lean in with the story because they're not a cute, cuddly. From our aspect, maybe sometimes cute, cuddly, but from these people, they don't. And they don't have. How do you tug on their heartstrings? Well, you can tell them all you want, but like they're not going to care.
That's right.
But they will. One thing that they can't deny is their story. So you tell them their story, they might not like that animal still, but they will have an understanding and appreciation for the animal somehow by its story. So that's what I really lean into big time in my animals. And that doesn't come with having a mass quantity. That comes having a relationship of knowing, like the back of my hand, how this animal is and where it comes from and its tendencies, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And that's a cool way to those what's the right word? The elderly home care centers, man. I know a lot of musicians that play those, and I'm like, that has to be an awful gig. And people are like, no, I don't even do it for money. I just do it. And I'm like, and these are like really like pro gigging guys. And I'm like, really? And they're like, it's like nothing else, Adam. Like sometimes somebody with Alzheimer's will hear a song that brings them back to, a vivid, lucid state kind of deal. And that's a neat way you put it, because I'm sure a lot of those folks, I don't know, let's face it, as we get older, we probably get less amenable to change. So maybe they've been stuck for 60 years or 80 years with a mindset that, the snake is the devil that gave the apple to Eve or whatever, and you're just
any
like,
good snake is a dead snake. And people don't
right.
realize
Yeah.
that this is a generational thing we're up against. People don't realize that what we're up against is a generational thing. This isn't a current thing that's so narrow-minded. It's a generational thing that we might not be able to stop people from the way they think now or did, but what we can do is from what's going to happen next in the next generation, and go into the pliableness of these kids in a generation where it's like, it's not too cliche, man. I have up there, some of his stuff. If you can name one hand, how many people have been influential in the wildlife, don't not to say industry, but wildlife in general, worldwide.
Yeah.
Steve Irwin, Jack Hanna, some of these people. So you could probably name, maybe if you're lucky, if you know what one hand. And
right. And that's going like, I feel like I'm going pretty deep if I say Marty Stouffer from my nature days and PBS growing up, but that would be 3. I don't know.
So you're telling me that takes that many people to make an impact and a difference?
Right.
It doesn't, man. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And you can be the next one. And it's not to say that I need to be some like known person. Just like I said, my mentor has been doing it for 40 some years. Like he's now getting a little bit more recognition because he has more time. But like, that's people that like deserve some more, and that just there's a lot more people out there than we give credit for. And just I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just I get a really great appreciation for what was, what is, and what's to come. And I think if we had that mentality of those 3 things, there's nothing. You get your motive, you get all kinds of different outlooks on perspectives on why if you're sitting, we're going back to the first thing we ever even mentioned in this podcast, is if I'm sitting here and I'm overloaded with all these animals and I thought what I wanted and where I'm at now, if I don't have that outlook or that kind of aha or get that, what's going to happen? Yeah. Am I going to sell these animals for dirt cheap just because I need to do something, or am I going to dig deep or dig my heels in? Like what's the answer here? Right. And that's not maybe a one all be all question.
No, there's not a one size fits all solution.
But I mean, that's why we're all different. We have different paths to navigate. And I think, it helps when we're able to communicate and talk like this, to where it's like, I hope people got nuggets like this that needed to hear something. And because I don't think, anyone on your podcast, are on this for just by happenstance, or so I mean I hope I know you're meticulous, and I consider it a privilege to just be on here to offer some kind of nuggets to anyone out there, or even long term, since these are recorded.
Speaking of Ed, where can people find you outside of this evening's live chat?
Let me say real quick so I can fix this real quick. So yeah, you can find me on Komara Outdoors on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm pretty, open on that. I also say I really lean into the biggest thing is like, my Komara Outdoors. But if you want to get to know me, I love people that just reach out to me on my personal Ed Komara Jr. on my Facebook. I love connecting because that's kind of where my main forte platform with all my, not just followers, but people I connect with on a daily basis, because you get to know me from a personable aspect and rather than just like me thinking, all I do is animals. No, like we didn't touch on it, but my family, faith, fitness, like what you see is what you get. Like I don't care about if it's gonna get a lot of likes or following, but you're gonna get to know me and who I am, and just being transparent. So
nice. Guys, check out Ed at Komara Outdoors, and Ed Komara Jr. is the name on Instagram.
It's gonna be just Komara Outdoors, but yeah, it's at Komara Jr. as well. I have on Instagram of my personal one as well. But I post the most on my Komara Outdoors social media, but my personal one's mainly on my Facebook.
Okay, cool. Well, Ed, thank you for being here, man. I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll see you at Tinley. I might see one of the other stops on the in the Redline world. And if you're ever here in Minneapolis, you better give me a ring, man. We got to go check out some cool stuff. There are some cool animal places in town here. I've been real excited since I've been here in Minnesota.
I would say if you're ever in my neck of the woods, but you don't need to be over here.
I don't know what'll bring me there, but you never know. It's every now and again, people are like, "Adam, you're everywhere." I'm like, "Well,
I will say that I'm one of the first ones to go. I'm a big promoter on our current local reptile show. We're currently almost sold out on every single one, over 100 plus. We're gonna have to be going.
What's that show? What's the promotion?
So this is called the Northeast Ohio Reptile Show, and I have two tables. I promote my Komara Outdoors. I promote the US ARC and Redline. So I have 3 things going on because I feel like there should be so much more US ARC in general on every
there's
table.
never enough of that.
Forget about that. Forget about Redline as much as US ARC needs to go on every table. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm big on trying to give from a professional avenue of like, these people need to know, man. They need to know, and we need to have more fighters and warriors, for this industry. So if I can be that guy and have to be that guy, let's go.
Ed, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Stick around in the green room for just a second. Guys, I'll be back same time, same place next week. I got Jeremy and Jeannie Bod from Bod's Exotic Reptiles, and I'll be on Thursday morning with Proper Cup of Joe as usual. Ed, thanks. Keep it up, man. Keep going. Keep carrying the torch. There you go, man. And guys, if you want to see, I'm saying a legitimate, even just from a spectacle standpoint, physical change, go check out Ed's pages. But I think you'd be inspired by more than just the spectacle of it all. And Ed, thank you so much, man. We got to do it again sometime, okay?
Blessings, man. Appreciate you. Let's do it, man.
All right. Thanks, Ed. Like I said, stick around for just a second. Audience, thank you. See you soon.